Hello everybody, Megazard X here, and I'm back at it again to give y'all another review for Dr. Stone. And this episode review is going to be a little bit different. As some of y'all may or may not have known, in my review for Dr. Stone a couple of weeks ago for episode 10, I did say I wasn't going to be able to review episode 11 when that episode actually dropped due to some family circumstances that kind of happened in my life that was kind of unavoidable. But I told everybody within that last video that I said, hey, when episode 12 does drop, I'm going to drop a 2-for-1 review episode. So I'm actually going to be recapping episode 11 and then being able to actually jump straight up into the episode 12 review. So if you hadn't already checked out my episode 10 review, you can go ahead and click that card in the corner and check that video out, and then come back and see at least the first part for this episode 11 review, and then it will flow and transition straight into the episode 12 review though. But overall, for both of these episodes, looking at episode 11, it was pretty straightforward, and overall I've just really enjoyed and liked the episode, and it's basically kind of like the foundation as to why chemistry is and why they really needed to get that certain material. And then as we translate later into episode 12, you can actually see the substance that they get within the episode 12 being directly related based upon the foundation that they established within the episode 11. So I'll be going over all the details and filling up all the holes over the span of both of these episodes from episode 11 to episode 12. So go ahead and kick back and sit back and relax as we're about to go over this latest episode of Dr. Stone, being episode 11 being Clear World and episode 12 being Buddies Back to Back.
万能薬サルファ剤に向けて楽しい化学実験は同期じゃもう無理ゲーだ。ガラスならほとんどの薬品に耐える。ガラスは化学の原点なんだよ。加工しやすさ100億%。その邪魔くせえかぶりもん外して名探偵スイカの謎の素顔拝めっかもしんねえぞ。えいあおおなんだスイカめっぽうかわいいじゃないか。どういうことだ。おはよう世界グモーニング
So kicking things off for the episode 11 review for Dr. Stone, being Clear World, this episode as a whole can really just honestly be split up into two main parts. The first part dealing with some development for Suika, and then the second part actually being the development of the actual material that they're actually introducing and creating within this episode. So just starting off with the first half of the episode, Senkun basically breaks down to the group that, hey, in order for them to create the cure-all drug that they'll need to heal Kohaku's sister, they needed glass. Now, glass is such an essential substance that is needed for science within the everyday life. Because whenever you look down and sit down and look at glass, glass is a substance that is highly resistant to heat and other chemicals and stuff that you can do within certain chemical experience. That's why whenever you walk into a chemistry lab, or often maybe even biology, sometimes with biology or maybe physics, maybe not so much with physics, but mostly chemistry, maybe a little bit of biology, you always see glass, pretty much set up around everywhere. They're kind of shaped in different shapes in order to kind of deal with whatever kind of substance that you're dealing with, and that's because the glass is very resistant to heat, chemicals, and all sorts of other things. So that's why glass is such a necessity whenever you're messing with chemistry as a whole. But that is essentially what Senkun said is what's needed to create this cure-all drug for Kohaku's sister. So, but before they actually, got into the deep digging of, trying to create this glass, because that's a very tricky substance to mess with and, to perfect and craft, as we'll talk about later in the episode, to be able to create though. But they first started off on a small scale, and they figured out that, or Senkun basically figured out that Suika was basically nearsighted. And you also got to see Senkun basically take that watermelon head off of Suika, which I was very curious to see what this girl actually looked like. And then Kohaku kind of ran out of here out of nowhere, just like, hey, no, she doesn't like to, have her, helmet kind of, or watermelon, I'll call it a watermelon helmet. She basically doesn't like her watermelon helmet to actually be taken off her head. But then we finally get to see her face, and she's such a sweet, cute, adorable little girl. Precious, must protect, all of that good stuff. And instantly, you see her cute little face go into like a sour kind of, you ate like a sour gumdrop or something like that, and then it's all like crinkly and all mess like that. And it was kind of funny to see that facial reaction though, but there was a reason why that happened with her face, and it was because she's very nearsighted. Now, I can actually really relate to her because it might have been back when I was in like the second or third grade-ish. First, second, or third grade. I can't remember exactly which, but it was one of those few grades. I think it might have been first or second. But I remember, sitting in class and looking at a whiteboard and stuff, and I was like, I can't quite see that well. And I had to squinch my face up a little bit. And Senku did a very good job of explaining this in the episode. And he basically explained that, hey, whenever you're nearsighted, if you happen to actually squint your eyes and, make your vision of sight smaller, it does sort of kind of clear up the vision, clear up what you're seeing on the other end from your eyes whenever they're intaking that into your your retinas and everything else. So it was nice to kind of see them break that down, and that explains why Suika went from the pretty nice smile to like the squinched up old looking like, oh, that's like a grandma and a 3-year-old little child or something like that though. But that explains that. So in order to combat this issue, Senkun basically took some small steps with glass, and glass can basically be used to, enhance vision sight. And most of the time we don't use like a straight up like pure glass to make glasses anymore, even though it's called glasses. I don't know why, but it's more like a plastic that we kind of use now though. But back in the day, I know for sure they were more likely to use glass and actual glasses. And the cool, interesting note is, while they're trying to create the glasses for Suika, is the thicker that your glasses are, it means pretty much the more nearsighted you are in terms of your vision. So if you happen to look around at anybody within your area or neighborhood or anything like that, and you see somebody with glasses, the thicker their glasses are, that usually means the worse their vision is. The thinner they are means their vision isn't terrible, but they need that little bit of assistance. That's why if you see somebody with nearsighted glasses, like reader's glasses that they only put on to read, that's why theirs is usually particularly very thin as compared to somebody that wears glasses all the time. Their thickness might be a little bit thicker. So that's why Senkun was basically kind of basically do like a vision test and have to constantly check and see where her vision was at. And eventually he got it down to the right size and was able to fit it into her watermelon helmet. And she was finally able to see everybody clearly for what they are without all the blurriness and muckiness that was in her eyes. And that was just a great kind of character development for her, and just kind of seeing how far she was able to come. And I know this is very relatable for pretty much anybody that has bad vision, because there's a good chunk of our population through the earth as a whole that wear glasses or contacts in general. And I felt like a lot of people were able to relate with this episode with the first half though. But it was a nice touching moment for the first half, and kind of your introductory, kind of one of your cool uses that you can use with glass. And then moving on, we had the second half of the episode, and that was the part where they actually had to deal with the glass creation. Now, this is where things kind of got a little tricky, because essentially, once they had all the materials they needed to make the glass while it was in its molten form, they basically had to get like these big old tubes to hold up and have to blow into it. And that's like, and it's basically called like glass blowing in order to create it though. But you have to blow up into the molten substance to blow just enough air to get it in just the right shape of whatever you're trying to create, whatever glass material that you might need. And for the sake of chemistry, there's some that are kind of shaped like in a triangle but have like a flask that shoots straight up, so it's kind of difficult to kind of shape everything the way you want it. You also have beakers and everything else that you kind of need to make, but Senkun and Chrome and everybody else that was trying to make the glass just simply couldn't do it, because it takes quite a bit of experience to do this, and this is everybody's first time trying to do it. Senkun knows about the process, but it's a whole other process to actually sit down and be able to do this. But they happened to run across a guy called Kasaki, and Kasaki basically was like the craftsman of the town. Like he was able to create multiple different crafts for the town. He even created the bridge that, you know, as we see as those two gatekeepers are always protecting it. He actually created the bridge to actually get you into the village. So naturally, he's pretty good at creating stuff. So basically, they sort of kind of kidnapped Kasaki, and they were kind of, you know, creating glass in front of him to basically show how bad they were at making it, and kind of convince him to and make Kasaki think, oh man, I can make it so much better than them. Oh gosh, they're doing it wrong. Why are they need to spin it this way and not that way, or you're going too fast, or you need to prop it up a bit more, or you need to blow a little bit more, you need to blow a little less, just to get it in that proper shape, whatever you're trying to create. And they basically convinced Kasaki to be able to create the glass, and he was so much better at it, and it's because due to all the years and experience that he had with glass making, he was able to pick up this process and learn it, and being able to create this the creations they wanted to create. And he was able to do it more efficiently than them, just due to all the experience he had with other craft making. So thanks to Kasaki, they were actually able to create all the glass substances they needed for their chemistry, and that's basically the big foundation for chemistry. And now Senku, along with Chrome, you know, our main two scientists, along with any other helpers they get that was able to help them, from, you know, Kohaku to Suika and anybody else, they'll be able to help them now that they have all the glass substances. They're able to go one step further to making this cure-all drug, in which, man, we went a far way with this, and they even showed in the village how many different substances they needed, or not substances, different facilities they needed to create it, from the ramen to making the magnets, to creating the furnace, to you know, creating electricity. You know, once they created the magnets with the copper, everything spinning it, it took a lot of different substances, all the way leading up to the glass making, to be able to make this one cure-all drug for Kohaku's sister. So a lot of work has been going into this though, but this is one of the first major advancements beyond all the stuff that we had created at this point. And that is pretty much where episode 11 ends, and there's not pretty much more to kind of add to it, but that's just episode 11 as a whole. Is just basically, you know, creating glass and some key components and some cool things that you can do with glass. So that is all for my episode 11 review of Clear World for Dr. Stone. But make sure to stay tuned, as I'm about to get ready to transition into the next part of my review, being episode 12 for Dr. Stone.
化学史上最高のお宝をゲットしに大冒険に出発だ。マジで即死もある危険度マックスエリアでてめえの命を張ってもらう。戻れ金狼
Moving on to the second part of the review, being episode 12, Buddies Back to Back. This episode, it was really good. I mean, we got so much character development. We actually got to see some motives of some other characters, and it was just a complete joy from watching this episode from start to end, and it built up on some established things that was, you know, established within episode 11, and just seeing all these things kind of blend and mix together was all very good. But just kind of run through, you know, some of the plot along with what I thought along the way. Basically, this episode picked up from the beginning moment or the ending moments of where episode 11 left off at. And Senku basically made a silver staff for Kinro, and, you know, Jinro. He made a silver staff for Jinro, and Kinro basically kind of got jealous because, you know, he had the gold staff, and the gold staff was kind of taken through him due to lightning when they were trying to create the magnets and all that other stuff though. But Senku wasn't just creating that, you know, silver staff for Jinro just for him though, but it was more so as it was being used for an indicator for this next substance that they needed in order to create this cure-all drug for Kohaku's sister. And essentially, they're trying to go out and find some sulfuric acid. Now, let that sink in. Sulfuric acid. Instantly, right off the bat, if anybody knows anything about science and they hear the word acid, naturally, you don't want acid on your body, depending on how potent it is. Obviously, it can kind of burn through your skin or whatever, though. But the sulfur part, that's where it raises some eyebrows. And we'll see this as we go later on into this review. But essentially, they needed that sulfuric acid in order to create the cure-all drug. So they basically went out on the hunch and basically told them that, hey, that silver staff, if that silver turns into black, you got like 0.1 seconds to kind of get back, because the sulfuric acid where they were trying to get basically emits certain gases into the air that's basically poisonous, and it is hydrogen sulfide along with sulfur dioxide. Now, both of these substances, if you had a little bit of a smaller, weaker dose and like a lesser concentration of it, it can give you irritations on the skin, or it can make your eyes get irritated, or it can kind of mess with your lungs a little bit. Stuff that could be curable, if treating to immediately, depending on the severity of it, you can go to the hospital, you can kind of get it treated though. But if the concentrations are high enough, it can, be instant death. And since Senku and his group were actually traveling to the source of where this sulfuric acid was, and it was located in these pool-like areas within this kind of mountainous kind of area, the concentrations were high enough that yes, it was going to be too strong for them to be able to withstand. And instantly, if they got too much of it within that short period of time, they were surely going to die. But they needed this sulfuric acid. And so they basically traveled all the way, and they actually found a pool. And they basically kind of told a little bit more science about the gases, and they essentially said, hey, while we're here, there was even a story of how one person even kneeled down on the ground, and because of the hydrogen sulfide / sulfur dioxide being heavier in the air, as they said in the episode, which actually means in scientific terms, these gases are much denser than our regular atmospheric air that has oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, everything else that's up in it though. But it's more dense than our natural air. So that's why it kind of sits down in those low areas. So whenever that person kind of kneed on the ground, essentially that person died whenever they were just trying to tie their shoes. So essentially they had to be very cautious of this though. But knowing Jinro and getting kind of mesmerized by how kind of pretty-ish the water actually looked due to the chemicals that were actually up in it, he kind of got naturally drawn towards the pool. And you actually kind of saw this woman that looked like a siren-ish, like you see in kind of in certain pirate movies, how they'll be out in the waters and there'll be a beautiful siren lady that kind of looks almost similar to a mermaid-ish, and I kind of get drawn to it. They did this visually in the episode to kind of give a little plot substance, to kind of make it kind of visualize and kind of give more of an appeal, so to say, to the things that are happening. Because naturally, if that were to be real life, it'd just be a pool, and you wouldn't probably have that dude just walking straight in toward the pool to show what could be the consequences of what happens when you get too close to a strong dose of hydrogen sulfide and everything else. But that's why that was in the episode. So you saw him get drawn close. The spirit got turned from silver to black, and essentially Kohaku was able to come in there real quick and be able to snatch and pull the dude out just in the nick of time before he was in potential harm or danger or losing his life. And essentially they said, all right, well, we know where the substance is now. We can always come back here, but we can't get the substance safely without risking our lives. So they have to come back another day. So essentially they went back to their base camp, and Senku basically said, hey, we need to make some gas masks. Now, you've seen gas masks before when it may be certain documentaries of, certain chemical attacks that, sort of kind of happened throughout history, throughout some world wars and everything else. Gas masks help regulate with other chemicals that are in there that help neutralize the toxins of whatever gas you're dealing with. And for us, it's mainly the hydrogen sulfide / a little bit of that sulfur dioxide. So basically, with the help of Kasaki, our architect or our crafter, he was basically able to help Senku and some of the others be able to create those gas masks. Now, this led into one of our biggest plot points so far yet, and that was the matter of fact that Senkun was basically gonna risk, his own life trying to get this sulfuric acid, and basically, risk his life to try to get that, so that way Kohaku's sister could be saved. But that didn't really sit well with Chrome. But Senkun said, hey, in case something happens to me, I need to pass down all this scientific information down to you. Because, hey, if both of us die, that's it. Science is pretty much going to be wiped off the face of the map. No one else is pretty much going to have like that backbone. I mean, sure, it might raise back up, because humans are naturally curious with things. Sure, it could happen in the future, but it will take several thousands of years, because we're in the Stone Age right now. It was going to be quite some time before anybody else kind of got smart enough to mess with science and the way that Senku and Chrome have naturally had. So he basically was trying to play it safe and say, hey, as an insurance policy, I'm going to teach you all the science that I've known for like the past millions or so years and pass it on to Chrome. But this didn't rest well with Chrome. And he basically said, you know what? You can keep your knowledge, because if that means that you're going to risk your own life, hey, I don't want it. And he also mentioned how Taiju and Yuzura were actually spies within Tsukasa's empire, and how they're risking their lives to be spies and get information back to them. In the same way, Chrome wanted to be a use to Senkun and be able to actually get this sulfuric acid and be able to help Kohaku's sisters, be able to heal and everything. And basically, Senkun basically countered his logic with thinking, well, since he knows how the mask works and the materials that they're messing with, with Senkun being able to go there and do it, that's probably one of their best shots at doing it, though. But, Chrome basically would not let that go. And he said, you know what? Our best chance of survival is for both of us to watch each other's backs, as the title of this episode kind of suggested. And Senkun basically agreed that, okay, you know what? If Chrome comes with me, it does increases my odds of, surviving and being able to get this substance and, not being, and not killing yourself in the process. So yeah, that basically ends their conversation. But Kohaku was basically listening to listening at their conversation from the tree branch, and we kind of get a little bit of a flashback moment of reasons why Kohaku acts the way she does with her father and her sister. And essentially, the reason why Kohaku and Ruri, her sister, are so important is, within the village, the chief leader, he basically has to pass down the information, from generation to generation, and it's called the 100 Tales. So basically, throughout history, before we were able to, write, before we were able to write and pass down information that way, a lot of information was passed down from generation to generation through storytelling. So essentially, that's what they were trying to do with passing down these 100 tales from generation to generation. And Kohaku's mom basically died some time ago, and Ruri was basically the one with the information within her. And their father agreed that, hey, since she's so sick, she doesn't have much longer to live, so we need to pass on the information from Ruri to Kohaku. But Kohaku didn't like that, because it basically meant that, well, the moment that Kohaku kind of got the information, there's no point of keeping Ruri alive, or they probably trying to, do all they can for her to keep her alive, because she has that valuable information within her. So if she takes it, then there's no significance behind Ruri's life anymore. So she basically ran off and kind of said, you know what, I don't want to be the next one in charge, or partially in charge. I don't want to do that if that means that Ruri's life is probably not going to be saved. So she basically kind of, from that point, devoted her life for the time being to, get the hot spring water, trying to bring that back to her as what they call like some kind of miracle water-ish, but trying to do everything she could to be able to help her sister survive. And she basically said, you know what, I'm going to have to make my father hate me, so that way I don't get into that role, so that way Ruri's life still has some meaning, because she was still trying to save her life. So that's basically the backstory of Kohaku, and the reason why her relationship with her father isn't as good as what we've been seeing in all the previous episodes during this village arc. And basically, after that, we kind of got a little conversation, a little tease of why, you know, Chrome could be a very good suitor for Rui being her potential husband, but due to, you know, his ability to not be able to fight well, that's why it's up to Jinro and Kimro to potentially be the ones to be all the challengers in that bout and to be able to claim, you know, being Rui's husband, so they're able to give this cure-all drug to her. So it was just kind of unfortunate that she said, well, I like to train you essentially, but, you know, due to your body physique and everything, you're just not able to basically hold your fight or be able to hold your own in a fight. So that's why Kohaku is readily training Genro and Kimro at all the way up to this point. So then after this is where the biggest point of the episode happens. So basically, now Senku along with Chrome are trying to get the sulfuric acid, and they had the gas mask, they had the stuff on their back that's able to neutralize the gases and everything else, and they're trying to get the sulfuric acid, and all seems well. You know, they're kind of going through and getting their substance though. But meanwhile, back at home camp, it actually showed how Genro was kind of still trying to get over his fear of that over the hydrogen sulfide almost taking his life. And he had basically an honest heart-to-heart with Kasaki during this. And, you know, everybody has fear. I have fears. I know all y'all have fears. There's just certain things in life that we just don't cope with well. But fear is not necessarily always bad, because it's due to that fear that it helps keeps us safe and keeps us out of harm's way and helps us actually live longer. As you saw, you know, during a part of the episode where Kasaki was basically he said he was always kind of timid, or not timid, but kind of more always scared most of the time, as you saw him kind of hiding behind some rocks, behind some lions at that one scene though. But it's due to that fear that helps us live on and live stronger. And he basically said, hey, Senku and Chrome are essentially scared. Don't let that trick you, how they seem like they're strong. They're scared inside, but there are times where you're just going to have to, you know, take that fear up, swallow it, and move forward. And while times may seem tough, hey, you got to suck it all up and you got to push forward, because you got to overcome this fear in certain circumstances, especially in this case. So it basically gave Genro enough courage to be able to take a gas mask up that Kasaki actually had an extra one made just kind of for him for this situation, and he was basically able to go to the location where Senku and Chrome are at. And it was a good thing he did so, because panning back to the scene where they were at, where the sulfuric acid was, Senku's cord actually came loose, and it was thanks to Jinro he was able to spot this, so Senku was able to patch that up, so all was good. But at the same time, Chrome actually started to fall straight into the pool of sulfuric acid. Now, the second he would have touched that stuff head on with all the gases and everything else, and it would have burned through his bag and the sulfuric acid would have been all on his skin, the second he would have hit that pool, he pretty much would have been dead. But out of nowhere, Genro rushes in and takes that silver staff and points it out, and Chrome was basically able to grab a hold of it. And thanks to his, you know, smart wits and everything, and Senku being able to calm Genro's breathing rate so that way he didn't burn through the gas mask material to keep him safe while they're this close to the hydrogen sulfide, they were able to successfully rescue Chrome from certain disaster. And throughout all of this, they were able to actually obtain the hydrogen sulfide. And this wouldn't have been possible if they hadn't created the glass to actually hold the hydrogen sulfide in, from the previous episode 11 being Clear World. So that's where you kind of see the glass coming into play to being able to use for the sulfuric acid. So they're able to actually hold it without, you know, all those chemicals actually getting on their hands. And I'm pretty sure that stuff would burn pretty bad if that got on your skin and everything else though. So that's how you kind of saw episode 11 tying directly into episode 12. And that's essentially where the episode ends. So overall, I really enjoyed this episode, and it was quite, you know, it was a fun ride to kind of see all of this stuff kind of go on. And I was able to make a lot of different connections with the science I naturally knew and everything else. But overall, I enjoyed this episode from start to finish. So that is it for my episode 12 for Buddies Back to Back, along with the episode 11 that I covered earlier, being episode 11 Clear World. So that is all that I have for these 2 reviews for Dr. Stone. And I'm sorry that I had to do this kind of like 2 in 1 and not being able to do episode 11's last week. But, you know, when family circumstances happen and such like that, you can't control those things, though. But, hey, you got 2 in 1 for this 1 episode review, so it's probably one of the longest ones I did for Dr. Stone being at this point, though. But I'm glad to be back at it again and being able to consistently review these episodes once again, you know, week to week. And honestly, I've been really enjoying this, and this is episode 12 we just got finished with, so now we are 50% done with Dr. Stone, and we got a whole more 50% to go as we're about to transition from the summer anime into the fall anime. So overall, I'm still looking forward to everything else that Dr. Stone is about to have hold on, or that Dr. Stone is about to deliver on. And soon we should be getting a new opening. You know, whenever a new opening happens, I'll go back in and change up, you know, my channel opening for my Dr. Stone reviews as well. So you have that to look forward to as well, though. But overall, that is it for my episode 11 and episode 12 review. So if you really like this video, go ahead and drop a like and hit that subscribe button. And go ahead and hit that bell so you can stay up to date on any other videos I'm dropping out for anything that's anime reviews or any of my gaming topics that I did recently, a couple or a few weeks ago. So that is all for this episode review, and I'll see y'all next time for my episode 13 review, being Masked Warrior. So until whatever video I make next, see ya.
万能薬の最難関素材硫酸ゲットだ。しゃー